Hi, I'm Kathy Gunst, resident chef for Here and Now, and it is fall. I don't know where the summer went. It always happens like that. It goes so quickly, and I have a really terrific recipe for this time of year. It's a roasted wild mushroom soup. It's from my new book, Notes from a Maine Kitchen. It's one of the recipes featured in the book, all seasonal, local, regional recipes. And what I've got here are a bunch of different mushrooms. I've got portobellos, I've got cremini, I've got shiitake, and the more varieties of mushrooms you can find, the more complex the flavor of the soup is going to be. This is a really cool soup because it's roasted. And what happens is you roast the mushrooms with some onions and garlic and fresh herbs, and the heat of the oven caramelizes the onions and the mushrooms. They develop this very rich, almost meaty flavor. For vegetarians, it's unbelievably satisfying. It's almost like eating meat, but it's all from the natural flavor of the mushrooms. So we'll get started with a roasted wild mushroom soup. The first step with the roasted mushroom soup is to clean the mushrooms. Now mushrooms, take a look at this. These are the gills. Mushrooms are like sponges. They absorb water. That's what helps them grow. They grow in soil, natural soil, and the bed of the woods, and then it rains and they sprout and they soak water up. So when we clean these, we do not want to be putting them under cold water, because what will happen is it'll absorb all the water and then we'll have a watery mushroom. All you want to do is take a paper towel or a tea towel, a little bit moist, and just brush it lightly. It's okay if part of the skin comes off. All we're doing is removing some of the surface dirt. Once you have your mushrooms cleaned, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to trim the very end of the stem off. We don't want to waste any of this. Just the absolute tip. And then because this is all going to be roasted and then pureed, it doesn't matter what size pieces you cut it in as long as they're all of the uniform size. So just trim the very tip of the stem off, chop it up. With the shiitakes, you want to trim a little bit more. They have much longer stems. Throw those in. It's a no-fuss recipe. You really can't ruin this one, honestly. I'm going to throw that on. Toss it up. I want to keep this really light. This is a really comforting, filling soup, but you don't need a lot of butter, you don't need any cream. So what we're going to use is olive oil. We're going to toss all the vegetables with a little bit of olive oil, about 2 tablespoons, just till the pan gets greased and the vegetables get greased. We're going to toss those up. Again, just coarsely chopped. Everything's going to go into, it's going to all get pureed. It's going to go into a blender or a food processor, so we don't have to worry too much about making it perfect. And these herbs are going to really highlight the earthiness and the complex flavors of our mushrooms. So we added some rosemary, some thyme, and some chives and scallions. We're going to pop this into a 400-degree oven for about 20-25 minutes. The mushrooms are going to roast, the onions are going to caramelize, the herbs are going to flavor it, and then we're going to take it out, and we're just about done. Seriously, this is soup for people that have no time. The mushrooms and the onions and garlic have been roasting for about 22 minutes. The kitchen smells like, I don't know, a gorgeous October day. I can imagine a fire going. It smells great. Let's take a look. Oh, beautiful. That's what we're looking for. Okay, the onions are nice and soft, and the mushrooms are nice and soft, and the onions have started caramelizing, and all this gorgeous mushroom juice has been released. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the hot pan out and we're going to deglaze it with a touch of white wine, red wine, or sherry. I'm going to take about 2 tablespoons of white wine, but you could use a dry sherry or a red wine. This wine is actually made in South Berwick, Maine by some friends of mine, and it's almost too good to be using for cooking. What this is doing, this is called deglazing, is I'm making sure that every little bit of flavor that's stuck at the bottom of the pan is going to be released. The wine is going to help just release all the flavors, and wine and mushrooms are good friends. They go together very well. So this is it. This is the base of the soup, and I'm going to throw it into a soup pot, and then we have one more step. So I've taken everything out of the oven, I've deglazed the pan, and now I have it in a soup pot. Now I'm going to add some stock. And here's where you have a lot of choices too. Today I'm going to use a chicken stock. You could easily use a vegetable stock, but you could also use beef stock if you want a really meaty tasting soup, because these mushrooms have an incredible meaty flavor. You're going to add about 6-7 cups of stock. We'll know in a minute whether we have enough, and we can always add more. So the soup's ready. Now you have 3 choices. You can puree this in a blender, a food processor, or you can use an immersion blender, which is what I've got here. These are incredibly invaluable tools because you don't have to get another pot dirty, transfer it to the food processor. We're just going to puree it right in here. Now I haven't added all of my stock yet because I want to puree it and see how thick it is. I'd rather have it be too thick now than too thin because I can always add more stock as we go. So it's about to get very noisy, but what I'm doing is simply blending this. Again, a blender, a Cuisinart, or an immersion blender. Now, in terms of the texture, this is perfect. It's thick enough to coat a spoon, but it's not too thick, so I don't think we need to add any more stock. If you wanted a thinner soup, you could add more, but it's just about right for me. We've got our roasted wild mushroom soup. As I mentioned, there's no butter, there's no cream. It's so thick and really rich and complex tasting. You will not believe the complex flavors. It tastes like it's been cooking all day. Now you can serve this as is, or I have some options here. I have some fresh herbs to sprinkle on, which I highly recommend because that just brings out a lovely flavor and it adds a good flavor to that rich, dark mushroom brown. And I've got here a little bit of parsley and some fresh chives. If you wanted to, but you don't need to, you could add a dollop of sour cream or creme fraiche, just as a little garnish. Nice glass of wine, crusty, warm French bread. You've got yourself a beautiful meal for the autumn. So enjoy this soup, and thank you for watching. And you can find the recipe on Here and Now's website, and you can also find it in Notes from a Maine Kitchen, my new book. Thanks, happy autumn.